Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, How CTV Boosts Brand Performance for Search Experts, presented by Mountain and Search Engine Land. Before we begin, just a few viewing tips. If you have any audio issues, go ahead and click the audio icon on your screen to enable your audio settings. And if you have any viewing issues, you can use the Q&A section at any time to communicate with us. You can also send questions and comments directly to the speaker about his presentation at any time. Joining us today from Mountain is Ali Haeri, Senior VP of Marketing. Welcome, Ali. I'll turn things over to you now.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for everybody tuning in. I run marketing at Mountain, but my background is in performance marketing, and so a presentation like this to me feels like I'm just talking to my peers. And what we'll talk about today is looking at connected television, definitely a hot topic in the world of advertising and marketing broadly, but we'll look at it through the lens of search marketing. And again, I feel like today, at least, I'm just a performance marketer talking to other performance marketers. So thanks again for the time. So just to dig right in, one thing that you've certainly been observing is the fact that connected television is, again, a pretty hot channel for marketers, especially at a time where we're looking for some sort of channel differentiation. And so the timing is great. Now, a lot of people have this perception of connected TV just by virtue of their understanding of linear TV as being a tool for brand marketing. But something that Mountain has sort of been telling the market for some time now is that connected TV can be treated as a performance marketing channel. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, just what specifically about it makes it conducive to performance marketing specifically. But what I specifically want to dig into with our crowd here today, as people who, again, are performance marketers that have an explicit interest in search marketing, is how connected television can play a role in a search marketing strategy. It plays a pretty unique one that I think is going to be pretty useful for a lot of people to understand. So what we'll talk about today, again, we'll start with how CTV is bridging the gap between brand and performance marketing. Then we'll get really practical and really understand what the effects are of adding connected TV to your ad strategy, how it fits into a demand gen program. This is specifically of interest to anybody who is, again, in a place where they've kind of tapped out on all of their core marketing channels. And then finally, one really interesting aspect of this whole conversation is that even if connected TV is a channel that you haven't advertised on yet, you likely already have the skill set to immediately deploy and measure the success of your campaigns on connected television. So most of this presentation is just going to be grounded in doing. And let's dig right into that. Now, as I mentioned already, a lot of marketers perceive CTV as a major component of a brand awareness play. And that certainly makes sense. I guess just to address this straight on, that it's not as if that's untrue. That certainly is the case. CTV can be a method of doing some type of brand marketing. The point that I want to make, though, is that you shouldn't limit yourself to that. The perception that we have of linear TV is that it's inherently immeasurable, or it's got abstract measurement associated with it. And so whether you're doing brand or performance marketing, the exciting thing about connected television is the measurability of it. This is a far more accountable experience than anything that we've seen before with an ad unit that's television-like. And so this opportunity ahead of us already is inherently a performance channel just by virtue of it being a digital ad channel. And so, back to that point of linear TV and the perceptions that we have of it, connected TV neatly negates the biggest issues that a lot of people have had with linear TV advertising, starting with precision audience targeting. Probably the most obvious issue with linear TV advertising for marketers has been the really abstract mechanism of targeting on linear TV. A lot of that targeting is done by way of network or show-based targeting. And there's just inherent waste with targeting in that sort of way because not everybody in your target audience is going to, necessarily be watching a specific program or being on a specific network at the time that you'd like. Me, for example, I'm a nightmare for a linear TV advertiser because I'm a male, but I watch things that aren't conventionally male on TV. I watch a ton of Bravo-based reality TV all the time, and so a marketer who's doing just some pretty clunky demographic-based advertising wouldn't necessarily think to run ads to target a person like me on the networks that I'm regularly consuming. That is a non-issue in the case of connected television advertising. You just have inherent precision audience targeting. You could target by job title or company or interest or in-market behavior. If you can't tell already, it's just programmatic advertising, and it's borrowing all of the same programmatic audience targeting capabilities that you see specifically on social advertising. Same goes with measurement. We have lived in a world where for 80 years, a lot of marketers have been advertising on linear TV with a bit of an abstract understanding of the impact of their television campaigns. Now, of course, you can monitor things like website traffic and conversions after a TV ad airs on broadcast television. That's a really broad and roundabout way to kind of measure the success of television advertising. In the case of connected television, again, this is a performance-based channel, and it's digital inherently. And so, with a platform like Mountains, for example, you would pixel your website just as you would run a pixel for Meta or Google, and that would give you insights on precisely how many people who were served your ad in a given household visited your website and converted on your website. This is all pixel-based and not intuition-based or using some sort of brand lift study with a huge time delay or anything else you may sort of expect from a company like Nielsen. This is as precise as measurement gets for digital marketing channels like you would expect on some of the other channels that you're running. And so this is what we consider kind of performance-driven brand awareness, and something that I find myself telling brand marketers on the other side of the fence is that you should love this too. It's not acceptable for you to just be accepting the fact that brand marketing is inherently difficult to measure. I've met that. I've met marketers like that before too, where they kind of say, "Yeah, well, I do brand marketing, and we're used to having this like sort of abstract measurement to understand the impact of our campaigns." That's no longer the case. Now, even if you're doing a brand marketing campaign, even if your creative is part of a broader brand marketing activation, there's no excuse. You too can also get some precision measurement that's going to help you kind of understand the impact of your campaign. Now, where the rubber really starts hitting the road as it relates to search advertising is really understanding what the user behavior is as it relates to this channel. As a lot of you probably know intuitively, this is not something where you really need to kind of rely on a lot of the data. This is one of those rare instances as marketers where you can kind of lean on your own experience as a consumer to give you a sense of what's actually happening with the end user and how they're experiencing ads. And 87% of TV watchers, me included, are watching TV with a secondary device in hand. And this is what we call like a second screen experience. People are watching TV, also using a device, which is in some cases supplemental to their TV watching experience. And so as you're browsing the web while a TV show is on, this creates a really fascinating situation for the marketer. How do you seize this opportunity that someone is engaging with content on the largest screen, and then on the smallest screen, they're sort of available for even more influence. So at Mountain specifically, if you're kind of curious how we do attribution, we have a technology called cross-device verified visits. And in this case, what we're doing is essentially we're serving ads in the household, and that's really what starts everything, is just serving ads in the household. And then what we do is we monitor activity on any other device that exists within that household, and we extend that experience of advertising to those other devices. So we have a, a feature that we'll talk about a little bit later, Mountain Multitouch, which essentially continues to serve complementary ads to the users that were served the initial TV ad across the web, just to keep your message top of mind. Now, if any of these devices visit your website during a period of time set by you after the initial TV impression, we count that as a verified visit. That's a visit that is attributed to your television campaign. Now, for an extra layer of accountability, and in this case, we're talking about specifically Mountain. For an extra level of accountability, the platform dedupes these sessions that take place. So if the ad was served and then a user on that second screen clicks a Facebook ad, for example, and winds up on your website, Mountain wouldn't take credit for that visit that came to your website. It would defer that credit to Facebook in this sense, because it was another ad unit that someone interacted with that ultimately led them to your website. But generally speaking, what we're talking about here is an attribution model for television advertising. This is not something that we're used to talking about as marketers, because again, we've been living for so long with Nielsen reports and the sort of abstract nature of understanding what TV impact actually looks like in that way. But now we could speak about television attribution with the same clarity of thought that we talk about social media marketing attribution or search advertising attribution. And what's really important is kind of understanding the impact of these other screens on the process. Again, the best case scenario for brands is you run an ad on television, and immediately after the ad is done being shown to the user uses that phone that's already in the palm of their hand while they're sitting on the couch and searching for the brand because of that new exposure that they had, that new awareness that they now have. And this is something that we've sort of observed with our own advertising of the Mountain brand, and we've certainly seen, and I'll get to some statistics of this in just a moment, which is this idea that the ad on television really kickstarts the search process, which would be, of course, of interest to a search marketer, because anything that's going to drive organic is going to be a platform of interest for us. And so let's talk more about this kind of halo effect that we've kind of observed with running CTV advertising and the influence that it may have on other channels. A moment ago, we just talked about just that organic effect of someone seeing ads on TV and immediately their instinct being to search for that brand on a search engine, just as they've kind of been made aware of this brand or product or service existing. Now, we did some research on our advertisers on our platform, and what we did was we monitored the impact of running on connected television on their other channels after their campaigns had gone live. And so, for example, with paid search, 30 days after running a CTV campaign with Mountain, we noticed that there was a modest increase in conversion rate, but 90 days later, we noticed that there was a pretty seismic increase in conversion rate on paid search. Same follows on social, a really nice lift that we actually saw 30 days out, and doubling that 90 days after that to 8.5% improvement in conversion rate. And finally, for email too, if these are known prospects, you could certainly use connected television as a retargeting channel. Whether it's a list-based retargeting campaign where you're coming to a platform like Mountain with a list of email addresses of the prospects that you're trying to hit, or if it's site-based retargeting. Again, CTV in this case, it's like it behaves like all the other digital channels that you have. And so if you're going to put the pixel on your website, you could do site-based retargeting. And with email, this is another channel that we see just tremendous growth after the CTV campaign actually goes live. And so this already starts giving you a sense of the complementary impact of running connected television on the other digital channels that you may actually be running. Yeah, again, talking about cross-device, or that leap that users make across devices is tremendously important. It's a point that I already made, but just to kind of reiterate, um, as we think about that user experience of a user sitting on their couch, observing advertising, and then using other devices in the household to actually act, um, that's an important consideration. And so, again, in our case, we offer Mountain Multi-Touch as a way to extend that experience with complementary advertising on websites as users are browsing across the web. But it's that influence that we've noticed is something that's tremendously impactful. Now, different ad channels have different strengths here. And that's something that's important to kind of understand as a marketer. And I suspect that most people that are tuning in today are doing paid search advertising and probably optimizing that to the bone. I've done a ton of paid search advertising. In fact, I teach a course on paid search advertising at UCLA Extension. So it's something that I'm very familiar with, a channel that I really appreciate, and a channel that we're highly reliant on at Mountain ourselves. Now, let's be sort of clear about what the role of paid search is in your marketing mix. Paid search is a perfect channel for capturing existing demand. Really, what you're doing in the case of paid search is you're seizing upon the research process. People are going to a search engine to be given some sort of guidance in terms of how to find a product or a specific brand or a particular service, and paid search meets that need very neatly, as users are sort of like self-identifying themselves in their interests. But there's a couple of drawbacks to paid search, and I want to be super clear about this as a marketer who uh, loves and relies upon paid search. None of this is to say don't do it. I want to be crystal clear. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of doing paid search. What I'm talking about here is that there are some gaps in paid search reliance that I feel that connected television can really sort of fill in. And so, really, the idea here is that connected TV can be great in sort of triggering that awareness. And this is also something that paid social is good at as well, which is in an instance where someone doesn't know that a brand exists or even a product category, say you're new to market entirely, paid search is really hard uh, for an entirely new product category. People just don't know that a category exists, and therefore they're not going to think to search for it. And so connected TV can play that same role. Connected TV can be the first touch to a prospect to let them know that of course a new brand exists, but also that a new product category exists. And it's also an inherently visual medium, whereas paid search, we're talking about dynamic but text-based ads. With paid search, you can use that 15 to 30-second ad unit, 15 or 30-second, I should say, ad unit to visually convey something that's actually happening. You can visually convey what the experience is of using that product, how it works, and what it does. And so back to this concept of CTV kickstarting paid search. Again, it's going to help you capture an incremental audience to what you're already sort of capturing with your existing paid search and paid social strategy. The other thing about it too is that, with a platform like Mountain specifically, there's a lot of technology that is sitting under the hood to optimize the delivery of these campaigns. And this should feel not unlike what you understand about how, AI is deployed in, say, Google search, or in the case of paid social, all the technology that Facebook is running behind the scenes to really optimize the delivery of these campaigns. So Mountain is like those campaigns in that we serve, we observe all of the traffic and all of the conversions that take place on a website, and we take those observations and turn those into optimizations to improve the delivery of your campaigns. Going back to those results that you saw over time, this is what we see. Just like on the other performance marketing channels that you're using, we notice that the performance improves over time, which makes sense. As the campaigns run, as the reach extends, and as the observations increase, we pipe that back into the media buying technology that underlies all of this, and that increases efficiencies, and we just see better and better performance over time. This is a good moment also to kind of say that when you think of performance marketing channels, another characteristic of performance marketing channels is that they are sort of set it and forget it channels. They're something that you turn on, but you don't turn off. Brand marketing, involves a lot of sort of flighted campaigns, things that you start, run, turn off, and then sort of conceptualize your next campaign. Here in this case, we're talking about connected television as a performance marketing channel. So something that you're turning on, running, and not really turning off. We actually have this dependency at Mountain as as a brand that is using connected television. We've developed a dependency on the channel ourselves, where pretty reliably a quarter of all of our website's traffic is attributed to connected television, the campaigns that we're running on CTV. And so we're in a place where we don't want to turn that off because of the impact that it's having on organic search, the impact that it's having just directly on site with conversions that we're actually seeing. And so the final point here to make is, considering the fact that connected TV will likely drive a significant amount of traffic to your website, you want to make sure that your website is completely optimized to support that. And so we really encourage conversion rate optimization, as much of it as possible, because as soon as you go live with a connected TV campaign, and if you're a marketer for where your target audience is quite broad, you're going to see a decent amount of traffic come to your website in relatively short order. And so you really want to make sure that you seize that traffic, make the most of it as it visits your website. So again, that calls for continuous conversion rate optimization. In the case of B2B marketing, again, considering that you're driving so much site traffic from these campaigns, it might make sense to fire up some sort of chat capability if you don't already have that on your website, to again seize all this new volume of website traffic that you actually have. And from a measurement standpoint, things are again really exciting when it comes to connected television, because you're analyzing it and you're grading its performance alongside the other performance marketing channels that you're running. And again, this is a good opportunity to flag that this by no means is Mountain telling you to abandon paid search and paid social and to only do CTV. I just want to be crystal clear. The message isn't that. The message instead is that you now have a really viable third, cornerstone to your ad mix, alongside paid search, alongside paid social. You now have a channel that can drive real volume of traffic to your website, and can also have an impact on your paid search strategy, or your search strategy generally, I should say, because the sort of behavioral outcome of running on CTV, among many other things, is an increase in organic search. People are going to see your ad and go to search engines. One thing that I think is really important too for a lot of performance marketers is a lot of us have a dependency on Google Analytics. We use Google Analytics as a source of truth for traffic that's being driven to our website, and as a way to sort of standardize across several different channels too. We use GA reports to look at source and medium reports, all the channels side by side, to get a good glimpse of what's actually happening. And so this is another thing that I would sort of encourage everybody to do is, as you make that foray into connected television advertising, I would highly recommend a channel that is actually passing session data into Google Analytics. So again, you can grade the performance of your connected TV campaigns alongside the other ad channels that you're actually running. Now, the really sort of exciting thing about all of this is that you really already have the skill set to run on connected television. This is my favorite point to make to marketers, because a lot of marketers, they worry about going into an entirely new channel that they haven't advertised on before, because, there's always sets of best practices that you need to catch up on. There's always, really, uh, uh, concrete sort of considerations of um, learning a new UI. And also from a reporting standpoint, being able to make sense of the reporting. What I'm happy to say is that I think I could say confidently, everybody who's taking the time to tune into a webinar like this, you have what it takes to run on connected TV. Certainly, you have the skill set. The experience of running a campaign on connected TV, at least with a platform like Mountain, should feel very, very, very familiar to advertisers. A lot of it will feel specifically familiar to what it takes to run a paid social campaign. And what I mean there is specifically as it relates to the audience targeting capability. So just as you would with any other paid social campaign, where you're probably using, again, affinity data, in-market data on the prospecting side, with a lot of branded audience providers like MasterCard or Dun& and Bradstreet, or again, any sort of in-market data that would be useful. It's also on the third-party targeting side, or on the first-party targeting side as well. I mentioned earlier that you can do list-based retargeting, where you're uploading these audiences directly into a platform, or site-based retargeting. So all of this should sound very familiar to you all as marketers, because these are methods of targeting that you already do on other channels, and you can just carry over that precise skill set and understanding and strategy into connected television. You're targeting the same way that you would do on paid social. And also keyword strategy. Your keyword strategy can have some sort of influence on how you're actually targeting on connected television as well. What our team specifically does is we look at our search term reports inside paid search, and those give us clues in terms of the interests of the audiences that we're actually targeting. And we use that insight to drive the audience segments that we choose for targeting on connected television as well. And so, as it relates to what that actual process looks like for, actually deploying a campaign on connected television, it first starts with just understanding what your goal is and what your budget is for a campaign. And so, with Mountain specifically, again, in a nod to other performance marketing platforms, you actually start by indicating what your goal type is: a target cost per acquisition or a target ROAS. You set that into the platform, and the platform will use that as its North Star as it's doing media buying for your campaign. The platform's underlying technology, will work to hit your target ROAS or CPA goal. Then again, the piece that I was just kind of mentioning, which is audience selection. This part's going to feel very similar to what it's like to put audiences together on paid social. You just pick all of the audiences that you want to hit between first party and third party audiences, and now you have precision targeting for television campaigns, which again is a bit of a holy grail for TV advertisers. And then finally, it's just assigning the creative. And just a note on the creative that you'll be using in your campaigns. A lot of marketers that are already doing some sort of video advertising. They're able to get a variation of that video ad that they're already running on other platforms, sort of reformatted for connected television. So if you have a 15 or 30-second ad, or assets that can be cut down into 15 or 30 seconds, then you're already in a place where you could be advertising on connected television in relatively short order. Now, another note on creative is that an observation that we have from advertisers is that TV creative can go stale. This is a different ad experience than paid social in this case, because you're now running this ad in an unskippable format on the biggest screen in the house. Everyone has to see the ad before they proceed to the content that they want to see, as opposed to paid social. Someone could just blow past your ad inside a feed. And so users can get ad fatigue way more quickly on CTV than they can on social. And so for that reason, we encourage advertisers to refresh their creative as frequently as possible. I'd say at worst quarterly, at best monthly. Mountain specifically, we made an acquisition of a company called QuickFrame last year, which is a marketplace of over 5,000 creators where any brand, virtually any creative need that you have, it doesn't have to be for advertising, it could be for training or any other use case. But specifically, if an advertiser is looking for creative, whether it be shot by a full-blown crew, or if you already are sitting on assets or you have UGC content that you want sort of cut into a CTV asset, those capabilities exist. And we've also woven it into an offering called Creative as a Subscription, where what we call CAS, where an advertiser comes on board, and in exchange for a commitment of an annual commitment of ongoing media spend. So you come to us and you say, I plan on running for the next 12 months at this spend level. We will offer a creative refresh for you with some sort of regularity at no additional cost to you. So as long as you commit to, I'm going to spend this much on your platform for a year on a monthly basis, we'll go ahead and supply the creative for you. We will find a creator. You'll be involved in it. You'll convey what your brand guidelines are. You'll be part of the revision process. It's really like an agency that's kind of working for you, and we'll supply you that creative on an ongoing basis to just refresh in your campaigns. And the reason why is because, again, we see increases in performance every time the creative is refreshed. So we want to make sure that no matter the situation that an advertiser is in, there's no constraints for them to run on television. And so there's a lot there on the creative side that can really support advertisers. So I talked about a lot there, but I just want to kind of recap here again. This chasm between brand marketing and performance marketing certainly has narrowed. And again, even if you're a brand marketer, take advantage of all of the granular data that you get back from connected TV campaigns to kind of shape what you're doing as a brand marketer. Also, what we've noticed is the direct impact that CTV has had on search and other channels. CTV is top funnel in the sense that it could be the first channel that hits your target prospect, but it can also be bottom funnel in the sense that it can drive traffic to your website that actually converts users. Now, specifically, what I want to kind of call out again as it relates to that point too is that these channels are complementary. In no way are we ever asking you to not advertise on those channels, but rather think about how CTV can complement your other channels, how it can tee up user traffic that may sort of come to your website by way of some other channel. Again, a common sort of user journey that we see is first impression takes place on TV, which tees up an organic search for an ad for a brand. And then you got the user on your website. Hopefully you could close them from there. But with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for the time of tuning into this. And now I guess we'll just take some questions.
All right, Ali, thank you. Our first question is from Joseph, who asks, how do you think about the intersection of brand and performance marketing throughout your own initiatives?
So, as a marketing leader for a B2B brand that is using connected television in our channel mix, it's interesting. On the performance marketing side of things, CTV has been great because, as I mentioned, it's a channel that we're actually dependent on. It's a quarter of our website's traffic every month is coming from it, and it's interesting. There's a point in time where it's happened a couple of times where we'll pause our CTV campaigns just to refresh our creative, modify the audience targeting, whatever it may be. We immediately feel the impact of pausing the channel, and so it's this weird situation to be in where the very platform that we work for is become a channel that we're totally dependent on. Now, on the brand marketing side, what's also interesting there is how CTV can unlock creativity on the brand marketing side of things. We're often well known for the fact that we acquired Ryan Reynolds' creative agency, Maximum Effort. The first campaign we did with Ryan, because again, common question I get is like, does Ryan really work at Mountain? And the answer is Surprisingly, yes. The first campaign that we actually did with Ryan, which is a brand marketing campaign on CTV, is a great use case for how brand marketers can take advantage of all these new capabilities. Ryan had asked us if he's able to create an ad that speaks to marketers specifically. We said, yeah. We spun up a campaign where the audience targeting was marketing and advertising professionals, along with some other firmographic criteria. And the creative that Ryan shot for us was him talking straight to the camera, speaking to marketers. And he was telling them about the value and the impact of having this ability to just talk directly to your target audience. And he did that himself. He spoke neatly to marketers in that ad unit. And so there's all these great advantages that brand marketers are getting now that you could tell them, hey, with this piece of creative, this specific audience is going to see it. For other advertisers, it may be in-market audiences. Being able to like neatly speak to an in-market audience without worrying about watering down your message because you know that other people outside of that audience are going to see it. That's a tremendous unlock for marketers.
Thanks, Ali. Our next question, does your cross-device attribution model account for views that might come from other channels, such as paid search and social?
Yeah, and again, I should say, this isn't meant to be just like a mountain pitch. Here, we're just kind of talking about how CTV can be impactful for performance marketers. But in that case, since Mountain is kind of really trying to be as useful to performance marketers as possible, and really situate itself as like the third viable performance marketing channel that advertisers have, that accountability is super important. And so, yeah, the Mountain platform will automatically dedupe that. So we will, the Mountain Pixel sits on every advertiser's website and observes all of the inbound activity to your website. If we see in that user's sort of session information that they originated from some other paid source that wasn't a TV, we will defer that attribution to that platform. We won't take credit for that. So again, commonly, if someone is clicking a paid search ad after seeing your TV ad and coming to your website, or clicking a social ad that they may see from your brand, Mountain won't take credit for that. We will defer that credit to the last click in those cases.
That is great information to know. Thanks, Ali. Our next question, why do you think CTV has such a strong impact on other performance channels in terms of the halo effect?
Yeah, again, I think, when we think about like the user journey, in a lot of instances, CTV is that first touch. Everyone's going to kind of learn of the message or the brand or the product or service from that first TV impression that takes place, and that kickstarts everything, whether it be the user holding that telephone while they're seeing the ad and doing an organic search, or whether it may be a longer sales cycle where that impression registers, but a couple of days later they start seeing advertisements across the web, just as you would do with other channels, where you would have your paid search drive traffic to your website and then retarget those users on paid social. That same sort of whirlwind of or kind of orchestration of all of these different channels playing off of each other, CTV just kind of fits nicely into that. But what's particularly valuable in this case is the fact that you're going to get a decent volume of traffic that's coming by way of your TV campaign. And so even if that's not going to be direct conversions coming from that impression, it's going to fill up all your retargeting pools and tee up users nicely for advertising on other sort of places.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. And that's, if I don't have multiple video assets, should I wait until I make more creative, or should I just start using CTV with what I have?
Yeah, definitely use what you got. In a lot of instances, advertisers are sitting on enough video that they can put something together to run as a TV spot. So I wouldn't let that inhibit you. The only sort of rule of the road there is the qualitative specs of CTV are quite high. So whoever is kind of editing your creative just needs to be mindful of the standard for CTV creative, because that bar is higher than video ads. Because in this case, we're talking about running an ad on large televisions inside people's households, and so it kind of makes sense that the minimum spec for CTV advertising is going to be high. So in some instances, you may not necessarily be able to take the exact file that you're running on social video ads and just use it on television. You may need to do a bit of a re-encoding of it, but yeah, that shouldn't hold you back. And again, with other sort of solutions like QuickFrame, as I mentioned, there's quick and affordable ways for advertisers to be able to just gather what they have currently to deploy as creative. And again, some interesting things that we've seen advertisers do is UGC is great. Getting your audience to get in front of a camera and evangelize for your products, that can be stitched together into a really compelling advertisement. And that's also incredibly cost efficient too, to just take some like self-recorded video, send that to an editor, and for a very reasonable amount of money, just have that cut into a 15 or 30, run that on television. That can be very impactful.
Excellent. Ali, thank you again for sharing your engaging presentation with us. And to our attendees, if we didn't get to your question, we will be sure to pass it along to Mountain. On behalf of Search Engine Land, I want to thank everyone in our audience for attending today's webinar, and we hope you join us again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See ya.